To our panel today. We've got Richard from SOS Children's Villages International. We've got Elsbeth from Save the Children International. We have Gabby from Oxfam International, Roland from WWF, and Daniel from UNICEF. So thank you all so much to our speakers for joining us today. Really appreciate your time and look forward to hearing from you. And thank you everyone so much for dialing in and joining us, and hope you enjoy the session. So Richard, over to you.
Great, thank you, Ruby. So I want to start off with, this is quite exciting to get so many face-to-face experts all on one call, possibly unprecedented moment in the history of face-to-face. So definitely one positive thing that's come out of this crazy situation. I think, the last month for all of us has been completely crazy. I'm sure we've all had wild mood swings and had to deal with frustrating moments. And then suddenly ideas have come to us and we've thought about innovative things that we could do with our face-to-face programs in the future. Really, for me, the objective of this hour is skill sharing. The Resource Alliance is all about skill sharing, but never before has there been such a need, I don't think, for this kind of skill sharing, particularly with lots of us just stuck in our houses, going probably quietly a little bit mad. So it's really great that we can share things, and we've got the 5 panel specialists, and then at the end of the session we'll be able to take questions from people and try and share as many ideas as possible. So I started off with a Charles Darwin quote. It's the long history of humankind that those who learn to collaborate and improvise most effectively have prevailed. So relevant, I think, in our industry, and particularly with the times that we've got at the moment. Okay, so to start off with, I'll give you a bit of a deep dive into SOS Children's Villages and our face-to-face program, and what we've done over the last few weeks to try and be agile and try and react to this situation. And I hope you guys can get some ideas from this. So globally, we do face-to-face fundraising in 56 different countries around the world. And we do in-house face-to-face in 33 of those countries. And this represents more than 75% of all our new regular donor acquisition. So you could definitely argue that we probably depend a bit too heavily on face-to-face. A few months ago, I thought this was wonderful. And obviously now it's caused lots of issues, and we've had to react very quickly to things. We've currently closed 54 of our 56 markets, so we don't have face-to-face operating in any of them except for 2. Belarus and Russia have still got agency teams operating at the moment. Where possible, we've transferred our in-house face-to-face teams onto in-house telemarketing. That's been the biggest kind of no-brainer thing that we've done. We're either using the Evergiving platform to do that, or we're using virtual call center software wherever we can. In a few countries, we've launched new DRTV and digital campaigns, although that's obviously a work in progress and changing day by day. In the case of some of our larger in-house, we have 250 in-house face-to-face fundraisers in Spain. The team have been made redundant or furloughed. I'm just going to pause for a second. Can everyone make sure they're reviewed? There's a number of people still. Yeah. Okay, that's better. Cool. Yeah, obviously, I really feel for some of the people around the world who've had to deal with large amounts of in-house face-to-face fundraisers, or agency owners who are unable necessarily to transfer all those people to telemarketing. In a number of countries, we've furloughed staff, or we've made staff redundant. But we've only done that in situations where the government is providing financial support for those individuals. So in Spain, they're guaranteed 80% of their pay from the government moving forward. And we've decided to top up their pay with an extra amount, which is really just sort of a loyalty payment from SOS Spain, hopefully to guarantee that those fundraisers will come back to us when face-to-face fundraising resumes. And also just to keep in regular contact with those fundraisers over this period of time. with the face-to-face agencies that we're working with, and we get around 43% of our overall global volume from in-house and 57% from face-to-face agencies. With the agencies that we're working with, we're not providing financial compensation. We have initially in a few countries been asked if that was possible, but things change week by week, and obviously the governments in many countries are providing support to businesses now. But we are trying to keep in regular contact with our face-to-face agencies, and the main message that I'm sending out across the Confederation is that we want to, guarantee that we will work with them again in the future, and just guarantee our long-term commitment to face-to-face as a channel as soon as they feel that they're ready to start up face-to-face again. We would like to partner with them, so we want to give them that security. Okay, I can get the next slide. Okay, so my overall outlook, my overall sort of philosophy at the moment with the face-to-face managers around the world is, hey, here's an opportunity to take a step back, okay? Here's an opportunity to have a bit of downtime and look at your face-to-face program and really think about how can we make our programs better when we relaunch? What are the changes that we can make now that we have a bit of time on our hands to actually come back in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, however long it might be, and come back even stronger than we were before? So, for example, in a few of our markets that are doing in-house face-to-face, we're still working on paper mandates, trying to make sure that we get the tablet technology sorted so that when we do relaunch, we'll be launching with tablets. In many countries that have traditionally always used agencies and not trialed an in-house program, here's an opportunity to really look at what are the advantages of in-house, what are the advantages moving forward of a mixture of in-house and agencies. And for example, with us, SOS Netherlands has decided they're going to launch an in-house face-to-face program later this year, and are taking the time now really to project plan that. And they wouldn't have necessarily done that if this situation hadn't arisen. Trying to get people to be as positive as possible, just really send out the message that face-to-face will resume at some point, and it will be a strong channel in the future. The most important considerations when face-to-face does relaunch is we're going to need to be adaptable. We're going to need to try new things. It may be that the first few months of face-to-face, the public may have some confidence issues approaching fundraisers and vice versa. So one-time gifts in the startup period, potentially lead generation face-to-face as a way to just build the confidence levels with the public in the future. I think it's going to be crucial that you need to brand your fundraisers with some kind of messaging saying respecting physical distancing. The public will have been so used to the 2-meter rule and the physical distancing that's happening at the moment. I think fundraisers should all be branded, maybe baseball caps, maybe on the T-shirts, for example. I think considering touchless payment options, it was something that a lot of people, and I've heard a lot of agencies talk about doing. I think it now becomes a necessity, and I think we need to speed up this process. How can we enable members of the public to do a one-time donation to a face-to-face fundraiser by just tapping their credit card on something? Having hand-washing policies and hand sanitizers in place, and making sure that all fundraisers abide by that when a relaunch does happen. Okay, just before I hand over to Elsbeth, I'm just going to give one example of a country that I think has done a really great job over the last month of being very agile and reacting well to the changes here. And this is SOS Portugal. SOS Portugal has got an in-house face-to-face team, around 10 faces in Lisbon and around 5 in Porto. They've retained all their staff and they've moved all their staff onto telemarketing campaigns. If you have a look at the next slide, you can see the type of thing that they're doing at the moment. So the face-to-face manager is managing the team remotely and on a daily basis, checking in with them in the morning, halfway through the day, and at the end of the day, really trying to just recreate all the fun of a face-to-face program, the team talks, the excitement, the energy. We have to do this virtually now. So at the start of the day, the face-to-face manager organizes a yoga session with the team. You can see on the right-hand side of the screen there, the team doing yoga, doing exercises, doing dance-offs in the morning, doing lots of things just to really get the blood flowing and the energy flowing. And then, on a regular basis, doing either Zoom calls or group Skypes to keep the team motivated, have them dress up in funny outfits, challenges, dares, all those kind of things. Okay, some results from the program. Slowly. Okay, so we've actually seen some really great results. 42% of the people that we're calling and us 42% of the people we call and answer the phone are doing an upgrade. And this is obviously way higher than we would normally experience. And around 56% of total SOS friends we are calling are answering the phone. In terms of reactivations, 18% of people we call and answer the phone are being reactivated. Around 45% of total people we call are answering the phone. So some really strong results there. We go on to the next slide. What are the most important things to make that transition? Well, first of all, you've got to make sure that the scripts that you're using on the telemarketing calls are really reflecting the current situation and have a sensitivity around the COVID-19 situation and what people's circumstances might be. It's then also really important that we talk about the work that we're doing in the field and how that's been affected by COVID-19 as well, and why there's an important call to action in these circumstances. It's really important to have good training. Really important to have daily meetings. We do 3 of these a day. As I said, we do lots of motivational group dynamics on these group calls, lots of games, lots of dancing, lots of yoga, and so on. We do a 30-minute call halfway through the day after lunch to clarify how everything's gone, to give some feedback on some of the positive and negative calls that the team have had already. And then we have a 15-minute call at the end of the day to celebrate the best performances and to close the day with the general results. The general feeling from Filipa, the Director of Fundraising for SOS Portugal, is that face-to-face fundraisers are the best people to do this campaign. They've got the passion, they're resilient, they know the importance of an SOS friend, and therefore they're the perfect people. They just need the right kind of training on telemarketing techniques. And it's best that they're managed by the face-to-face manager that they're used to being managed by. That kind of creates the same sort of team dynamic that they have when they're out in the field, and keeps them motivated. Okay, so last slide for me. We're also doing, as well as reactivations and upgrades, we're trying to make sure that our loyalty team are retaining donors with a downgrade wherever possible. So 58% of SOS friends who call us to cancel the monthly donation stay with us with a downgrade. Okay, and then again, retaining face-to-face people is always the best option in this situation. When F2F does return, they can hopefully start straight away. Some next steps at the moment, as I said, the team have just been doing upgrades and reactivations. Primarily, we're going to start looking at lead generation opportunities. And obviously, the longer this goes on, cold acquisition becomes probably part of the mix as well. We're using Aircall. The website's on there if you aren't aware of it. That's the system that we're on. As one final point as well, I'm running a weekly league table, telemarketing league table between all the countries that are doing telemarketing, just to create some excitement. With the lack of sort of sport in my life and in the world at the moment, a league table between the telemarketing teams on performance is a way of incentivizing people. We use a points per hour system, and the points depend on the type of donor that you get. For example, a reactivated donor is worth 1 point, an upgraded donor is worth 1 point, a coldly acquired donor is worth 2 points. And so on. You create a point system, and then you divide these points by the amount of hours that the fundraisers are working on the telephone campaigns. Okay, thank you. I'm going to hand over to Elsbeth now at Save the Children.
Sorry, I just realized I was still muted. So let's try this again while I've unmuted myself. Thank you for whoever just wrote that. So yeah, very briefly, I am Elsbeth. I am the Global Face-to-Face Manager for Save the Children. Have been with Save the Children in this position for the last 4 years. And yeah, just very briefly, I'm based in Spain, where we've been in lockdown for the last 4 weeks nearly. So yeah, Rich, if you could go to the next one. So with Face-to-Face for Save the Children, we have face-to-face programs in over 25 markets, and of those 25 markets at the moment, 24 of them are closed. So like Rich was saying before as well, and I think we can all agree with everybody on the call here that we are all very, very reliant on face-to-face. For us, it's 70 or over 70% of the total individual giving mix, with some markets solely relying on face-to-face, some markets relying on it for 60 or 70%, but the majority of the markets would really be between 70 and upwards, if not 80 and upwards from there. So as you can see, it's a huge reliability on face-to-face, which, like Rich, I always used to think that was a good thing, but it's also showing like a lot of risk around our programs for that at the moment. So across our markets, we have 10 markets where we do in-house, but some of them are also mixed with agencies. And we have 15 markets where we work with agencies only. So with regards to this current crisis, whether we work with agencies in-house or a mixture of the programs, both of them are just as vulnerable. So we're trying to find solutions here for both the in-house and the agency markets. What we did see in some of the markets before we closed, and for example, Hong Kong and Finland were our very last 2 markets to close, is that we definitely started seeing a change in the face-to-face approach that was needed. First of all our private sites have been cancelled on us in pretty much every market. On top of that, also obviously there was a lot less traffic on the streets. But from those people that were still on the streets or in other locations where we were still working, the public was less inclined to talk to us. Obviously, we had to keep the distance between us. People were reluctant to hold the pens or the iPads, so we still had to wipe those. Or in the end, we referred to recording the approvals for sign up because we just couldn't share the utensils to sign up with. So that was definitely like we had to change the behavior of the fundraiser. We had to train them every day on what was the appropriate behavior in the situation if we were still out there. But eventually those markets closed as well. On the upside though, on a positive light on this, South Korea has only just recently reopened. So about 2 weeks ago, they opened back up to 15%, 15. Over the last couple of weeks, they've gone out again in a capacity with 60%, and they're aiming to go back out again with about 100% over the next few weeks. Not sure exactly how that's going to work, but hopefully this is a sign of, like there's hope at the end for all of us. So that's a little positive note on the faraway horizon here. Rich, next. So yeah, I thought this quote was very good for all of us, because this kind of describes how I felt at one point as well, where my face-to-face manager for the USA said, like, I never thought I could ever be this busy with my face-to-face market closed. And I could only fully agree with him. And I think everyone on this call really knows what he was talking about here. So yeah, couldn't agree more. I never thought that would happen, but 25 markets, of which 24 of them closed, and I am busier than I've ever been in my life. So what we've done so far, so I think for me, the biggest thing has been, it's been amazing to see how our international fundraising community is coming together on this. Whether you are an NGO or whether you are a supplier or an agency, it's like all of us are in this together. For me, I speak weekly with UNICEF, UNHCR, Greenpeace, Oxfam, SOS, and a number of other charities where we have like a weekly meeting to basically talk about how we are tackling this worldwide across all our programs together. So that's all of us on this panel as well. And for me, that has really helped. It has really worked, but it's also like amazing to see how we all come together in this. I've seen this as well internally with Save the Children. Obviously, we're all looking at how can we minimize the risk on our face-to-face, how can we minimize the risk on our programs now face-to-face is closed everywhere. So that also meant that we're moving budget from face-to-face into DRTV and digital. That means that we're trying different topics, propositions, different ads with both of those. Some of them work, some of them didn't. So it's a testing and trial in a lot of countries, but I think the main thing here is that it needs to be tested fast, and if it's not working, we need to come up with another creative very soon. So all our fundraising directors are working together on this, and the countries that are pioneering in this are definitely all our Asia Pacific countries and Italy, because they're a little bit ahead of us in most of the curve. So what has worked in Italy, we've trialed or tested in other countries, and also what some parts that did work in Italy also didn't work in other markets, and vice versa. So the main things that we're working on at the moment are for sure the face-to-face continuity planning. So the main thing here is obviously safety for our staff, whether they're external or internal, doesn't matter, is first. But we're also looking at how can we retain our teams, whether it is in-house or agency. Retaining our teams here is absolute key for us to maintain and to ensure that we still have a face-to-face channel once this is all over, but also to help our agencies survive this. So we're working together on finding the best solutions. So that comes to the next point as well. For the maintaining the relationships with the suppliers and the agencies, we need them and they need us, and we need to look after them in these times more than ever from both sides. So like I said, it's we're trying to find alternative solutions, reallocation of staff. If that's not possible, we're working together with our suppliers to see what else we can do to help them retain their teams. Also, this is of course also for ensuring the future of face-to-face as a channel. All our fundraising directors, we're moving a lot of money out of the channel, but at the same time, we're also looking at what are we going to do to keep the channel and to make sure that when this crisis is over, we still have a channel that we can easily activate again. Face-to-face is the channel that you can scale up easily. It's the personal nature of the channel that will, especially in harder times, bring the donors in. Face-to-face is a channel that you can activate quickly. You can scale up, scale down. So if we still maintain a channel now, if we really work on that, then we can really make sure that we have that channel to activate once this crisis is over. In addition, I have weekly meetings with all our face-to-face managers. That's something that Oxfam was doing at the time. So thank you, Gabby. So I'm doing that with my face-to-face managers, and we're sharing weekly, where are we with all our handling of this crisis situation, how we're moving on from that. So next slide, Rich. So what we've done so far, I'll speed up a little to make sure the other speakers have time as well. But the long story short is that we've looked at which of our markets can we reallocate to telemarketing. As Rich was saying, face-to-face and telemarketing is very transferable in skills. Face-to-face are absolutely amazing people on the phone if you give them the right training, if you give them the right tools as well. So far, we've managed to get 7 of our markets on the phone, and I've got 6 more likely to follow this week. So where that was not possible, we are looking into different solutions or different ways of engaging with the teams. But where it was possible, we're calling on a number of different topics. So we're doing a lot of thank you calling. We're doing a lot of loyalty, like welcome calling, upgrading, reactivation. And one big thing that we've launched in the US is that we have a campaign running there with Safe with Stories. It's a campaign together with No Kid Hungry, where people like Jennifer Garner are reading stories to children on Instagram or on Facebook, and where people can donate to. So it's to make it a bit of fun for the children, to relieve the parents, but it's also with an educational twist on it. So what we then do is that we have our face-to-face fundraisers calling on the back end of that with trying to convert the donors to regular givers. So we have campaigns running, we have a global campaign running for Corona, and where we are calling, and we have a domestic Corona program as well. We're trying to tie that in, as in this is what's happening globally, and this is what we're doing in our local environment, our local market here. So therefore, we then call on the back end of that to convert them again to regular givers. So some of the teething challenges were some markets we realized that our software was painfully out of date. Data requirements, like is it safe? How can we get the data securely to the fundraisers and make sure that all the data security and compliance is all in place. The existing infrastructure, some of our markets were still working on paper, so we didn't have the infrastructure. So I put an ad on LinkedIn and did a shout out like, anybody who works in these markets can help you with the software that we need. That'd be great. Some of the market conditions did not work with that. For example, Indonesia, we needed wet signatures on paper, so we couldn't get them on the phones yet, but we're still looking at alternative solutions. And we're looking at other ways of, like, for example, moving in with digital activities that UNICEF spoke about the other day, but we're still looking into that, and UNICEF might be able to say more about that. So next one, Rich. So what we're doing to engage our staff that are not on the phones. So especially Italy is a brilliant example of this. They work with a number of agencies and have 900 fundraisers through agencies. And they've developed like an engagement program of over 26 different webinars and trainings and courses that they're rolling out over the next few weeks. So it's all about upskilling, it's about training, they've got newsletters, everything to engage the fundraisers, to retain them in the meantime. It's a lot of upskilling also on the programs that we're running, on domestic programs, global programs, and they have a lot of guest sessions by, for example, the CEOs of the fundraising directors or the heads of program, either talking about their role or, in the case of the CEO and the fundraising director, like really addressing the fundraisers themselves, with showing them like how important they are to us and why we need them, and why we're upscaling them or what they mean to the organization. So that has really worked in both Germany and Italy. So Indonesia, they tried to get on the phone, but they couldn't because of the wet signature need. They decided, or they then designed a program or a competition between all the teams to drive traffic to the websites and the online merchandise shops, and through that driving to that, they counted by hits on the websites and by actual donations made, and that's how the teams get their bonuses. So it's an interactive team battle. They have weekly quizzes, WhatsApp competitions, and all of that, just to get the teams engaged and involved, and to retain them. And then my last slide. So very briefly, as we've already said, we've realized that all our markets have a huge dependency on face-to-face, which is also looking at a big risk for the channel, but it's also highlighting some of the needs that we might have, like contact-like payments. We've all been really forced to reallocate our teams, but some of the more positive effects of this are, for example, that we have all-round experienced face-to-face teams, hopefully by the end of this. We are better integrating with our other channels like donor development, DUTB, digital, lead, and more. And we were also talking the other day, like if we can maintain this, then that also means that we have a bigger workforce that we could dial up or dial down whenever we need. So hopefully there are some good things coming from this as well. But yeah, at the moment, we're just trying to stay alive. And that's it for me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Elsbeth. Okay, so now can I hand over to Gabby Edmond at Oxfam?
Thanks, Rich. Hi, everyone. So my name's Gabby. I'm the face-to-face specialist at Oxfam International. So firstly, just to give you a little bit of the context of the face-to-face program that we have at Oxfam. So we have face-to-face activity in 21 countries. 14 of those have in-house teams. And the split there is about 50-50 between in-house activity and our agency partners. And as you can see, just like Save the Children and SOS, face-to-face is responsible for the vast majority of regular giving acquisition. So where are we at now? It's been a crazy few weeks, as I'm sure it has been for every one of you as well. And in a second, I'll talk you through the kind of steps that we've gone through, the different stages that we've seen to get to where we are today. But right now we have additional telemarketing activity taking place in 85% of our in-house markets. And so that means those are face-to-face teams in some capacity making calls to supporters. In addition to that, we're also plans are also underway already with our face-to-face agencies to make sure we can support them with other kinds of activities. And actually some of those have already worked very quickly to get activity started last week. So the kind of stages that we've gone through are quite similar to the ones that we've already seen. Step one, as soon as we've realized that we can't continue face-to-face activity in a particular market, has been pulling the teams off the streets and thinking about different kinds of engagement that we can do with them. I think it's important to note that, for face-to-face, typically we can't run the same kinds of trainings. We often don't have face-to-face teams in office environments. We can't really have the same kinds of training dynamic that we might have in other channels. So if we're thinking about this as an opportunity, it's a really great time for us to think of how we can upskill our face-to-face talent across the globe, how we can think about personal and professional development, but also how we can think about using these incredibly talented people who have so much insight about donor behavior. So these are probably the people that know the most about our supporters globally. They speak to them every single day. They know what they respond to, what they feel inspired by, why they give. And so how can we really use their insights to make sure that we can improve our programs across the board for when we can scale back up? The second part has been around loyalty and check-in calls. So as for most of you, when especially we know we can't do so much around acquisition right now, what we are making sure that we're focusing on is our existing supporter base, especially when people are facing vulnerable times, and financial difficulties. So we're making sure that we can check in with as many of our supporters as possible. And I'll talk through that in a second. And then finally, different kinds of acquisition. So as you've seen, a huge percentage of our new regular givers come in from face-to-face activity. If that can't happen, that really does put our programs at risk. So thinking about ways that we can do additional types of income generation activity, such as reactivations and win back. Next slide for me. Thanks. So to talk through the first one, and Els has already given lots of great examples. The list is endless, and I'm sure you can think of lots of different things that you always wanted to do with your face-to-face staff that you haven't been able to. But I really love the example of our Spanish Oxfam Edmond. So they mobilized very quickly to get all of their fundraisers and team leaders, that's 150 people across 6 different regions, onto Zoom calls. And they were using the breakout room feature, sending people into little groups, and they got them to really kind of rethink the new starter training program. So you can see a couple of photos there of some videos that they've put together about explaining difficult Oxfam campaigns. We've updated our database of video dialogues. We've now got a wealth of kind of really fantastic dialogues that we can use to train our new starters in the future. And that last slide there, or that picture there, as you can see, that was a call between Mexico and our Spanish team, Intermon, getting all of our fundraisers and team leaders on the same call at the same time for the first time ever, which I think obviously is important for training, but also just connectedness right now, making sure that people feel part of something bigger than what's going on in their little bubble. A couple of other points there that they've been working on, tasks that might seem important but maybe not urgent and have been put to the side, like our fundraiser journey. So rethinking our career progression within Oxfam, how people can come in as a fundraiser and progress on to other roles. And I've also highlighted job swaps. This is something that for me is a kind of key objective of mine, is how can we get more face-to-face people into senior leadership positions at Oxfam? And I think these kind of moments, as difficult as they are, they're a really fantastic moment to show how resilient and also how transferable the skills of our face-to-face teams are as they take on new roles and responsibilities and can sidestep into different kinds of positions, perhaps within retention or take on other roles. Next slide for me. Okay, so how hard can it really be? I've included this picture of Nora. Nora is the internal face of the transition from face-to-face to telefundraising. She's taking it in her stride, as you can see. But I also included this picture because I think it really is a reminder for me right now that on one hand, if it feels like things are crazy, if it feels like that we're making decisions at 1,000,000 miles an hour, if it feels like things are very, very hectic, that's normal because they are. These are decisions that we would typically be taking across weeks to plan telefundraising activity, and we're doing it in a matter of days. But the other aspect is that we're doing it under completely different circumstances. So many of us are juggling, working from home for the first time. Many people are looking after, children while also doing their professional work. Many fundraisers who joined because they don't normally love the kind of work office environment are suddenly cooped up at home. So how do we enable people to really thrive during these kind of difficult conditions? And I think the thing to remember is that face-to-face people in general are typically so resilient, and they're very good at dealing with pressure and kind of crisis conditions. And often they do thrive in those situations. If you're in an organization right now that's facing a kind of resistance internally about allowing face-to-face teams to take on work that they haven't previously done, I can share with you the kind of recommendation that I've been giving at Oxfam, which is that it might not be perfect. We might not tick all of the boxes of our telemarketing strategy, if you like. But right now, the most important thing that we can be doing is reaching out to our supporters, because they want to know what it is that we're doing, how we're having impact, but they're also feeling perhaps, helpless, that they really want to be able to have an impact in the world, and they want to be able to reach out to the most vulnerable. And so this is the time when reaching out to them is going to be more important than ever. Next slide for me. Great. So rather than telling you about all the different stats of our loyalty calls, I just want to share this one example with you, because I think it sums it up pretty nicely. This is from Oxfam New Zealand. They started calling within hours of being stood down by the government guidelines. And one of our supporters tweeted, "Just got a call from Oxfam New Zealand thanking me for donating this year." They regularly do that, and it's nice. But then they went on to do something that really touched my heart. They asked if I'm doing okay during this crisis. Thank you, Oxfam. You made my day. This is the kind of feedback that we're seeing across the board. So, I think if anyone's nervous about making these calls, just try making one yourself. Try getting senior leadership to get on the phone and speak to a supporter and ask them how they're doing in this moment of crisis, because the impressions and the feedback that we're getting has been extremely positive. One thing I definitely would say, because we are doing not just fundraising calls, we're getting as many Oxfam staff to make loyalty calls as possible in some markets. And we are having people offer to upgrade, offer to give additional donations. So if that person doesn't have the capacity to take any kind of financial support on the phone, make sure they know how to contact people and give them the guidance of the best way to give, because it is actually happening more than we had previously expected. Next slide for me. Okay, so loyalty calls are extremely important, but of course we do need to be looking at ways that we can be generating, bringing in new regular givers as well. I think across the board we're seeing some really great early signs. We've only been doing some of this activity, and this is scale-up activity, for the past week or so. But we're seeing, for example, win-back campaigns. So that's where we're calling donors who've just recently cancelled because of Corona. And we're seeing, 50% of those people are actually deciding to continue their gift when they're given alternative ways of giving and continuing support. Even with some of the teething problems that we've experienced, which there are many of them, we are seeing a lot of our conversion rates are matching some of our telemarketing programs in some markets. So as soon as we can optimize those programs, we really are set to be improving there. Contact rates, as you expect, are higher with everyone being at home. And I've put on a few kind of tips that are pretty global, pretty universal across the board. I won't go through all of them for time, but maybe just to highlight a couple of them. Motion leads to emotion. I think I keep hearing that, when face-to-face people move to telemarketing, they suddenly are told that their body language doesn't matter, but we know it does. Our best fundraisers are the ones that aren't sitting down. They're still standing up, they're moving around, they're speaking to donors using their body language. You can hear when someone's smiling, etc. So keeping that same kind of energy in the calls that they're making. Ditch the word script. I think that's a really great one. Something that we're seeing that's having a real impact is the conversational nature of these calls. I saw something where people are talking at the very beginning of the call about warning the donor that you might hear my cat meowing in the background or my baby crying next to me, and that's because we're working from home as well right now. And it's a really great way to just kind of have some kind of shared ground and get people to open up about how they're experiencing the current situation. And one step closer part, just to explain that, obviously in face-to-face, we might be signing up people who've never heard of our organisation before when we meet them on the streets or doors or shopping centres or events. And actually, obviously, with telemarketing or telefundraising, this is an opportunity for people to almost have one step closer. So maybe that person's taken an action with us before. We might know why, when they signed up, and use that to ask them why they chose to give. So there's lots of ways that we can help face-to-face people understand that actually, their skills are so transferable, and actually will help them get great results on the phones as well. And then last slide. I mean, we could take a long time to talk through this one, and we're speculating a lot, and I'm sure there's, it'd be great to hear some of your thoughts. I'll check the chat in a second. I'm really interested to hear how this is affecting you all in your different markets. There's lots of things I think for us to think about. The first one, even just on a basic level, is that organizations who previously maybe thought that they couldn't have home office, or working from home wasn't a possibility, have realized that they can. So does that mean there's going to be a huge shift for people working from home more? What does that mean in terms of maybe doing more to door rather than street activity, etc.? I think then thinking more about the second level, and Els touched on this a little bit, but for me, one of the real opportunities is how we bring together acquisition and retention. So if you come from an organization that has managed to integrate these two departments well, I salute you. We are working on it. It's definitely a work in progress. But I think if we can use this moment where we've got face-to-face people making calls, understanding more about how retention works, understanding why those age KPIs are in place, also thinking about our agencies, our face-to-face agencies now making more calls as well. This is a real opportunity for us to not just return as things were before with the status quo, but to really kind of use this to change the way and to integrate better, to really have a quality focused campaign even more when we set up again in the future. And finally, I know it's been touched on already, but I just want to highlight, I know that difficult conversations are happening across the board, from all different kinds of industries. But we know that this is going to affect us. We are going to be having difficult conversations around decisions to furlough staff, to apply for government pay, or even redundancies in the future. I think it will be key for us really to highlight that face-to-face really are essential staff, and we will be able to scale up, maybe not quite to 100% straight away, but face-to-face. If we've learned anything from previous crises, we know that face-to-face is a channel that can be depended on. For those of us that were working back in face-to-face in 2008, and even Oxfam has faced, crises recently where face-to-face has been the channel that's been depended on to step up. So they will be key. What can we be doing to really protect those members of staff moving forwards? I think is going to be crucial right now. I think I'm handing over to you now, Danny.
No, we've got Roland from WWF now. Gabby, thank you very much. That's great.
Hi, yes, it's Roland here from WWF. My presentation is going to be slightly different from the ones before. Instead of concentrating on tactical issues, I try to put a picture for the strategic level, how the thinking evolved during the crisis. I hope you can hear me, and I hope you can see my slide. I think the most interesting about this crisis was how very quickly it evolved from local to global. We all are kind of used to different kind of crises in our face-to-face operations. Sometimes the government shuts down face-to-face in the market. Sometimes there is an emergency situation and so on. But we never before experienced when it just goes from one market to the other one. And I think these old kind of habits ruled the beginning of the crisis in terms of our adaptation as fundraisers. We thought, okay, it's a crisis somewhere else. It's far away. It might be coming. Okay, what shall we do? And the next morning we wake up and 24 out of the 25 countries that we did face-to-face in has been off. Wow. The second level of that was how we tried to adapt during the crisis, how it evolved. And it all started first as a small hygiene issue. We might just organize sanitizers and masks for the fundraisers, but otherwise, yeah, it's going on. Yeah, we may think over the paper signatures, how that should work. And now we're facing a situation where people are required to keep distance from each other and almost like using a spacesuit when meeting each other, which is completely reinventing the game. right? And I don't think any of these organizations, including us, has been really aware of how heavily it can scale up at the beginning, which means that all our risk management plans and protocols, I think we have to rewrite them for the future. Because you can't guarantee that this one or another one might not repeat again, and then we need to learn from what happened. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So I would say there are 4 levels of adaptation to the situation, and it all depends on the severity of the situation of the pandemic, the health situation in your market. As said before, the first level has been simply organizing some hygiene stuff, hygiene equipment for our fundraisers, which means gloves, masks. Probably we had to organize the teams around increase sick leaves, let people stay home if they don't feel well, in the protection of the team and so on. But it's still within more or less the normal in a way, right? But then the next level is the technical innovation, which some of the speakers mentioned before. Even if the markets restart, it's not going to be the same thing, and the globe doesn't solve it in itself, because you still need to get the sign up in some way. So technology may help with the contactless sign up and paying, and using virtual platforms for like a replacement for face-to-face. So that is the technical part. But we're still on the side where face-to-face was possible, right? And right now, nearly every market except a very few, like Korea, we just restarted also for us. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later, as someone asked what happens to organizations that are not working on health and humanitarian issues. So the next level, it really changes the situation when your fundraisers cannot do the job anymore. And you hopefully want to keep them somehow. So this is when you have to do a lot of engagement programs with them, which includes trainings and social events online. You have to do all the funny games and everything, and turn the whole program into online for people who are used to talk in person, right? Because this whole industry is based on personal interaction face-to-face. And suddenly you have to tell your people, stay at home, work with me, engage with me, but it's going to be all virtual. Yeah, you have to reinvent your own organizational culture for that. And the 4th level is the most severe, in case the entire business is off for a while, and then you have to find another solution, which is either using your fundraisers, your face-to-face fundraisers, doing telemarketing or chat platform contacts. I mean, for example, FaceTime or WhatsApp. But the 5th one is, which is actually not on the slide here, missing. What happens if the entire business is out of business? Which means we have to shift budgets to other channels like your TV or online. One thing, that this is not a scale that is only going one direction. As you have heard before, Korea is back also for us. We're not a humanitarian, and especially not a health organization. We are working with nature, which means animals and plants. But still, we can do face-to-face again in Korea. It does work. It's a bit early to tell you sign-up rates or success rates, because it's only a couple of days into operation, but it does work for now. But you have to carefully check what you can do in your market. Can I have the next slide, please? So the next question is how long the crisis will last. And that is really your strategic concern. There are 2 kind of forecasts when you listen to health and economic experts, because of course there are 2 issues, right? How long the epidemic is there, how long people have to stay in quarantine, that's one question. Second one, how long and how deep the economic impacts will be. So which means, will people have still money to pay donations? So there's a short term, which means probably the crisis is going to be over in 2-3 months from today. For the global north, the hope was that the summer, which normally is not a season for influenza virus, will be similar for the COVID virus as well. So we will have the cases going down by, say, June, and hopefully also the fundraisers will be back. The problem will be on long term, because the other forecast is that the coronavirus is not like influenza. It's going to stay with us and make more patients in the summer as well. I mean, the European summer, of course, which means that until the vaccination is going to be developed, which is another 1.5 years, next June, the problem is going to be with us. Can I have the next slide, please? So because those two forecasts are very different for our face-to-face programs. If it's only a question of 2 or 3 months, it's still a big problem. We're suffering, but the sufferer is mostly acquisition. Yeah? So we have to chase our programs, and then when we restart, there's going to be a question whether our fundraisers will be back to us and so on. But it's mostly limited to acquisition. And I think it's similar for us as for the other charities so far. Retention so far holds. We do not experience increased attrition rates for recurring donors from face-to-face, not even in Italy, not even in Spain so far. There's a bit of news from Greece, but that's another heavily impacted country by economic crisis. So if everything goes well, and we can restart acquisitions in June or July the latest, and let's say Korea is a good hope for this, then the organizations might overcome this problem with a smaller problem, because retention is not impacted and hopefully agencies will mostly survive. But imagine what happens if face-to-face is in this in and out situation until next June. We'll lose probably most of the face-to-face agencies. They go bankrupt. And probably most of the charities will have a serious income issue because the existing donors will also drop off, for most of them. There was one question on fundraising for organizations that are not dealing with COVID virus or humanitarian issues. Actually, we experienced digital and DRTV still going fine for us in most of the markets. Of course, not in those countries which are under the heaviest attack, like Italy. There, it's off. Thank you very much. I think, Danny, the floor is yours now.
Thanks, Roland.
Hi, everybody. I'm conscious of time. I've got 5 minutes left, and we want to make some time for questions. So let's see how quick I can get through this. The beauty of coming at the end of 5 face-to-face specialists is they've covered everything, and UNICEF are pretty much doing everything that's already been mentioned. But just to give you a little bit of insight into what we're doing at UNICEF. So UNICEF did have the largest face-to-face program globally. We worked in 48 countries, approximately 4,000 fundraisers working every single day having conversations. It represented a little bit less than most of the others, but about 56% of all new donors globally came through face-to-face. And actually last year we did one new donor every 59 seconds around the world, which is a KPI I was very proud of, but I don't think we'll be doing that this year. Next slide, please. So for the first time in their professional fundraising careers, we're letting our face-to-face teams sit down, which they are very happy about, as you can see by these pictures. We are converting as many of our agency and in-house teams over to telemarketing, and they're doing really well and loving it. We've got the guy on the left there. He was actually the first guy to get a sign up in Brazil. We've got Uruguay team in the middle and some Mexicans on the right as well. Next slide, please. So what are we doing? We are calling no-shows in a lot of markets. So these are donors that essentially we signed up in the street, on the doors or in the shopping malls. We didn't actually get that first payment. So we're giving them a call and seeing if we can get that first payment, either as a cash donation or as a regular donation. We're doing lead conversion, either from cold or warm leads in a lot of markets. So that's kind of playing to the face-to-face skill set, really. Pitching for a regular donation is what they're good at. So why change it? And along the line, obviously, although there is a great skill set kind of transference from face-to-face to p.m. It is also hugely different being a fundraiser sat at a desk in your own bedroom making calls while staring at a laptop screen or tablet screen. So we're really focused on training to ensure that we deliver best-in-class conversations, and actually our UNICEF face-to-face strapline or face-to-face strategy is excellence in all fields where every conversation matters. So we're making sure that that still translates over to the phones, and also training in the fact that we want to make sure that we keep our fundraisers sharp. This is a great opportunity to upskill and ensure that when we do get back out, because we will be getting back out, they are the best they can possibly be. Just one more click. On the slide, there we go. And obviously, I mean, it's really important. Other organisations have mentioned this in this chat here, but we're delivering a lot of donor love. We have seen some spikes in cancellations in some markets, so I think now more than ever we need to be showing our donors that they are more important than ever. So donor love is definitely something that we're delivering through our face-to-face teams on the phones across the world. Next slide, please. Finally, I think the thing that's really inspired me from our face-to-face teams in this very unsettling times is their creativity. Because kind of being true fundraisers, when we say, okay, we've got to stop fundraising, they're like, no, that's not happening. We are actually going to continue fundraising. So we've been seeing some super inspiring examples across the globe. If you just do another click on this slide, please. Our face-to-face manager in the Philippines set up a Simply Giving page, and he got every single member of his in-house team to set up a Simply Giving page, basically saying, hey, I'm a face-to-face fundraiser, I can't do face-to-face fundraising, UNICEF is doing some really important work right now and I want your support. And they're sharing that amongst their own networks and getting their friends to share it amongst their networks, and all of the in-house team are involved. If you do another click and then another one. And actually, they've hit 60 in 3 days, literally in 3 days. Our small in-house team in the Philippines have raised almost $4,500 through this Simply Giving social networking kind of digital crowd fundraising drive, which again, super impressed with. Next slide, please. I love this. So this is Brazil. They said, we can't have fundraisers in supermarkets anymore. They went, no, yes, we can. So they've made cardboard cutouts of themselves, which are still going to sit by the tills in supermarkets with alcohol gel, so people can go over, wash their hands, scan a QR code, and still donate to UNICEF. And for me, that just really is the spirit of the fundraiser, right? You are not taking us down. We are going to continue to fundraise and be passionate for the cause that we love so much. Next slide, please. And then finally, I think solidarity is really shined through, and we've got face-to-face fundraisers from around the world that are sharing and caring and creating videos and sharing the love and supporting one another. We're supporting our in-house teams, we're supporting our agencies, and we're just making face-to-face teams around the world knowing that we're there for you. We will get back out soon, but in the meantime, we're going to continue to raise funds wherever we can and have some fun along the way. That is me, dead on 2 o'clock. Thank you very much.